Your attention please. Down Under from Darwin starts 10 seconds from now. It was a great trip, travelling from Darwin all the way down under to Perth by road during September and October 2001. Travelling via the Kimberleys, Broome and the Pilbara, it was almost 8,000 kilometres. Far too much for one video, so part 1 covers the first 9 days travelling from Darwin to Broome. The high-rise profile of the modern Darwin conceals the fact that Cyclone Tracy swept in from the Timor Sea and destroyed the old Darwin on Christmas Eve 1974 in a few hours of demoniacal fury, which totally destroyed half of the 11,000 homes and left only 400 buildings intact. The death toll was 66 dead or missing, and many historic buildings disappeared forever. 27 years later, Darwin is really buzzing again. Midtown, a delightful modern shopping mall, ideally fits the casual way of life in Darwin. It's a very uninhabited lifestyle, casual, relaxed and just right for tropical Darwin. Lots of fun, flowers and fashion. But let's get out of town and see what we can find down the track. The bitumen didn't last long. We're now in a 40-seater Mercedes coach heading towards Litchfield National Park. Our fellow tourists came from Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, Canada and the USA, and one from Germany. Our first stop was at Wanji Falls for a swim in a delightful waterhole there. A very welcome stop because the temperature was almost 40 degrees centigrade. Next stop was an even more delightful waterhole at Florence Falls. It was a truly magnificent oasis in this very parched part of the Northern Territory. But that shrill noise you hear comes from a colony of fruit bats nearby. Clearly, they're enjoying the fruits of this oasis too. The falls look great, but what about the waterhole? It's a steep climb down, but it's really worth it. How could you possibly find a better place to swim than that one? But how can you keep it to yourself? Reluctantly, it's back on the coach, and our next stop is at the magnetic termite mound, unique to the Northern Territory.
That are called the magnetic termite mounds. Magnetic because they face their north. The slimmest section of the termite mound is faced towards the hottest part of the day. So therefore, the least amount is showing to the hottest, to where the sun is on the hottest part of the day.
The termite life cycle from queen through to eggs, nymph and the flying adult. This area is unique in that it has an unusually high concentration of magnetic termite mounds. Even the experts are not quite sure, but consensus opinion suggests that it's probably something to do with the soil type and the terrain. This is a national park, and because it is regarded as a particularly sensitive area, the authorities have provided quite extensive boardwalks to keep the tourists away from the ground immediately around the termite mounds, so that they do not unduly disturb it and trample it, and also to remove the temptation to possibly want to dig into the termite mounds to examine them more closely. But there is the odd one out. In this concentration of magnetic termite mounds, note the difference between the one that is magnetic and the cathedral mound, which is non-magnetic. One of the more spectacular termite mounds, with its columnar structure of ornate pillars and fluted buttresses, they are reminiscent of medieval cathedrals. Often visible along top-end highways, they are amongst the largest mound built by termites anywhere in the world, sometimes exceeding 6 metres in height. We're now back on the bitumen, travelling toward Katherine, which is 280 kilometres south from Darwin, but we travelled 580 kilometres via Litchfield.
He named Katherine River, Katherine Gorge, and Katherine Townsite after James Chambers. I think it was his wife, whose name was Katherine. Markers on your right-hand side.
On the railway bridge.
Okay, on the railway bridge. The height of this bridge. Okay, the water flooded the town down, picturing a metre of water still coming down the main street. And in 1998, the only way to get around here in Katherine was dinghies. And the water be over our head now. Okay, there it is on the left.
Then to the Katherine River to board a boat to tour 2 of its 13 gorges. It is now the end of the dry season, and we have to change boats and walk over the bar separating the first and second gorge, but during the wet season the water can be 10 metres higher than it is now. The rugged red sandstone cliffs show just how torrential the wet season downpour must be to have the Katherine River carve such deep chasms through the mountainside.
In the dry season, which is April to September, those 13 gorges are all separated by large exposed rock bars, and we walk over those rock bars to get into the upper gorges. So it's quite different in the wet season. The flood waters come surging through those 13 gorges up over the big rock bars. We don't run these cruise boats in the wet season, we have a big power boat instead.
This is the end of the first gorge, where we get out of our boat, walk over the bar and join another boat to look at the second gorge. It was quite a clamber over the bar, separating the 2 gorges, but on the way we had the opportunity to have a look at some quite remarkable Aboriginal rock paintings on the cliff face.
Carbon dating process, but they do date the paintings by using whatever information they can get their hands on. So they date the painting by comparing the style of paint with those in other areas. Now these old red paintings, we're quite lucky. They're the most accessible to the general public, and also some of the oldest in the park, made of paint and then painted on the rock walls with their fingers. Also use brushes made out of bark and can sink into the sandstone up to 1 centimetre or half an inch.
Although some are faint, all the figures depicted are on the rock face. Now off to board our boat on Gorge 2. The red colour of the rock face here seemed even more intense than in Gorge 1.
Began to form about 25 million years ago. Started off with some sideways movement in the earth. That caused this great big solid block of rock to fracture.
This is a crocodile nesting beach. They are protected and, as the sign says, do not enter.
For 9 metres deep at this time of year. Just in the corner here is the deepest pool of the Catherine Gorge.
This is considered to be the most precipitous part of the Catherine River Gorges. That tree has an astonishing survival instinct, and clustered on the cave roof were
this is the fairy martins.
quite remarkable nest, and the chicks were lying low, although they seemed to be chirping before we arrived. And on a nearby ledge, the mother watched anxiously before flying away. Heading back to Catherine, there's a colony of excited fruit bats as we neared the landing.
Hey everyone, as you can see we're back. Hope you've enjoyed the tour of the Catherine Gorge. Thanks everyone now. Just watch your arms and elbows either sides of the boat as we come in here.
On the road again, and we're now headed west-northwest from Catherine in the Northern Territory to Kununurra in Western Australia, a distance of some 500 kilometres. This doesn't look good. There's a road train ahead, and as Gary says, it will take us 5
kilometres to get past them, especially if he's on his side of the road. Anyway, I'll go round him on the left.
There's a load of live cattle on board, headed for export through the port of Wyndham in Western Australia.
See, now as far as I'm concerned, even though we've got probably a kilometre in front of us, there's a bend up there, so we'll just sit tight. We're in no mad rush. I don't normally do commentary as I'm going past a road train, but I'm just explaining to you, we do often have to pull back in, because he won't slow down for me, which is fair enough. See, well, he's slowed down now, so we slowed down because we went up a bit of a ride, so I've got about 15 kilometres I can pick up, so we've got no problems this time.
The problem is that the road trains are speed limited to 90 kilometres per hour, and being such heavy and long vehicles, they are both difficult to start and to stop and to control on the road, especially with a side wind. Our Mercedes coach is speed limited to 100 kilometres per hour, and although it has rapid pickup, with a speed differential of only 10 kilometres per hour between the two vehicles, it takes a long while to overtake a road train which is 55 metres long.
Which there certainly is, so they're just hanging around water and on the left.
This is quite a large mob of cattle for this wide open country. These are the high sandstone ridges where the Victoria River cuts through the tableland. This 500 kilometre long river is by far the largest in the Northern Territory. It is a picturesque sight where the highway crosses it near the Victoria River Roadhouse. But read the sign, these are saltwater crocodiles, really dangerous, no swimming. And look what's basking in the shallows, just below the bridge. And while we're stopped at the Roadhouse, guess who goes past? He was really moving. Time to go and see if we can catch the road train and pass him again. The road followed the course of the Victoria River for quite some distance. Heading due west, we next sighted our first boab tree, a motionless windmill on this very calm day, and the ranges of the Keep River National Park. And suddenly we're stopped for a quarantine inspection.
I'm now walking from the Northern Territory into Western Australia, one leg in each state. That's actually the border there now, between the Northern Territory and Western Australia.
Welcome to the mighty Kimberleys. It's crocodile country. We're now travelling between the ranges, and get a brief glimpse of mighty man-made Lake Argyll.
Yep, there's the dam wall. We weren't swearing. We're going to go to a lookout point.
We are now on the 67 metre high wall of the Argyll Dam. Completed in 1971, it holds back the 741 square kilometre Lake Argyll, designed to irrigate 71,000 hectares of plains below the Carboid Ranges. We are about to go below the dam wall and join a boat to travel 66 kilometres downstream to Lake Kununurra. This water released from the dam feeds into the Kununurra River to keep Lake Kununurra topped up. These waters are full of the highly prized barramundi, so let's look at a huge barramundi in a tank nearby. Just look at the size of it, what a whopper! Are we looking at it, or is it looking at us? It seems to be so tame that surely they're not really intending to eat it.
You're a big fish, aren't you? You really are, yep.
I've seen that close before. There, it.
Yeah.
I usually go inside and say to the owner, well that's tomorrow night's tea, not happy with that, he's not going for anyone to get a play that one.
I think I'd heard Gary say that and simply shot through. We're now on our powerboat about to head 66 kilometres down the Kununurra River to Lake Kununurra and to Kununurra itself for our overnight stay. And we immediately sight our first crocodile sunning itself on a rock.
Flat rock straight through, 2 crocodiles, one line on top of the other.
But they quickly became quite commonplace. It certainly does show just how many crocodiles there are in this Kununurra River. I don't think I'd really want to swim here. It was a really fast ride downstream on the Kununurra River between these magnificent rugged cliffs of the Kununurra Gorge. We frequently paused to study the prolific birdlife. The comb-crested jacanas are also called crossbirds because their exceptionally long toes allow them to appear to walk on water. A pair of magpie geese, their prolific appetite put an end to all the rice growing schemes in the Ord River irrigation area. Another jacana. Next we pass a large colony of flying foxes nesting in a tree above the riverbank.
Also here you got a crocodile climbing up the tree, see him on the branch here?
Probably waiting for a flying fox to fall in the river for lunch.
Now you got 2 species of flying fox here. You got little red ones which are flying, and you also got the black flying fox, and they're about twice the size of the little red. A lot of people say it's what dirty stinger things, they should be all shot. But if you wiped out the flying foxes of Northern Australia, it'd be a disaster. Within 100 years of wiping out your flying foxes, your range of native flora would be reduced by 20%. Because these are one of the main pollinators of a lot of our native plants. They're a native animal, good stuff. Now a friend of mine grows mangoes for a living, and you'd naturally assume that he has a dislike of flying fox. Not a problem. They're only attracted to ripe fruit. So mangoes are picked green for market. You keep your orchard clear of ripe fruit, not a problem. However, every house in Kununurra has a mango tree in the backyard. The fruit is not picked when it's ripe. The flying foxes will move in and devour the lot. But if you're growing them on a commercial basis, not a problem.
They don't move around at all?
The black ones, well, they'll fly up to 60 kilometres away achieving to feed, but they always come back to the same spot to roost. Whereas the little red ones, they'll move over the whole countryside. These trees are melaleucas or paperbark tea trees, cajaputs, whatever you want to call them. Melaleuca leucodendra, if you really want to know. Is what's happening, a fire is destroying the blossom on the trees, which is the main diet of these.
So where do they breed and raise their young?
While the female lays or has a single young, like they're a primate, they're very closely related to us human beings. Now I know a lot of people don't accept this, but that's our scientific view, is that they're a primate. So the female bears a single young, it attaches itself to a teat and she carries it for the first month until it's too heavy. And it's a very interesting social structure they have, because what, and I'll use basic terminology here, but what the mums do with the 1-month-old babies, they put them in all a creche-like area in the one spot, and they're looked after by the old granny bats when the females go away to feed. That's the old female bats that no longer bear young. And all the bats in the colony know this, and with result they leave all the food in the immediate area untouched. So we've got extra eyesight. They don't use echolocation at all. Like if you have a totally black night, again, no stars, no moon, these fellas won't even leave the trees. They've got to have some light. But they'll take off to feed about 15 minutes after sunset. So you got a photo of that crocodile on the log?
She's still there.
And we head off downriver, with all of us now having a far better understanding of the life cycle and the importance of the fruit bat in our community. A great natural history lesson for all of us. And a couple of pied cormorants watch us pass by. So let's head further downriver and see what else we can find. Another bird stop.
I got it. Beautiful. Beautiful shot of it.
So straight ahead is your Nanking night heron. See, on the Nanking night heron or Rufus night heron.
Oh, I can see it.
And this, I think, is a black-tailed tree creeper, with a wonderful rufous throat and belly typical of the male.
So there's mum, dad and 3 chicks. 4 chicks.
Purple swamp hen.
Why do they have no fear of us being here?
Oh, I'm not going to hurt them.
But they don't know that, do they?
No, they're always pretty placid, these fellas. You see, the chicks can't fly, so there's not much they can do anyway. And see, also the canoeist camp is just here, so they're probably used to people.
There were rugged, brilliantly red cliffs on both sides. A magnificent boab tree.
Actually, back there you had some plume whistling ducks. But here you got a pelican, of course, pied heron, a grey and white bird. Another pied heron. We've got no keen bird eyes because you'd be going ecstatic by now if it was, alright? Green blue algae that's about, and that's formed when you get to high phosphate levels in the river, but this is good wholesome stuff.
As the day drew to a close, the wonderful colours on the red sandstone cliffs became even more intense, and the patterns from the sun shining through the clouds was absolutely brilliant as we sped towards our final destination at Downunder.
Big bird on the bank.
This bird was a black-necked stork, undoubtedly out looking for its evening meal. And watching it from the cliff above was a rock wallaby. As dusk approached and we neared Downunder, sadly our wonderful river journey was finally over. Next morning we would start our exploration of the magnificent Kimberleys. First we would fly south by light aircraft from Downunder over Lake Argyll and the Ord River to the superb Bungle Bungle Range. We climb over the rich, fertile river flats made productive by the abundant water now available from Lake Argyll through the Ord River irrigation scheme. Skirting the flanks of the Carboyd Range, we cross over the Downunder River, then over the impounding dam holding in the waters of Lake Downunder, ready for distribution to the field we have just left. A bed of floating algae below as we head west to follow the gorges of the Downunder River down which we had travelled yesterday. From the air, the ridges of the Carboyd Ranges look really magnificent, even more so than they appeared as we passed them during our trip down the river yesterday. We cross over an erosion-resistant ridge, probably dolomite, as we head further upriver to the Argyle Dam, just coming into the picture now. Unfortunately, it was a very hazy morning because of the high temperature and high humidity outside the aircraft, because of the unusually early build-up to the northern wet season. But visibility improved as we flew lower to get a better look at this magnificent Lake Argyle. And we also got a view of the relocated Durack homestead, the original being flooded when the Lake Argyle was formed. The 67-metre high wall of the dam is really impressive. Note that there's also a large truck crossing the roadway on top of the dam wall at the moment. It helps to show just how huge this structure really is. It is difficult to fully comprehend the huge size of the dam. It is said to hold the same amount of water as 27 Sydney harbours, and is in fact 741 square kilometres in area. It is difficult to envisage a more perfect site to build such a structure, and what it has meant to the Ord River irrigation scheme is beyond belief. Tropical fruit and fresh produce for Australia and the world. Another aircraft has joined us to have a good look at this magnificent Lake Argyle. We now have two aircraft with us as we approach the southern end of the lake. The second one is a much larger 12-passenger Cessna Caravan. We've left the dam and flown over the ridge, and now we have some still shots of the famous Lissadale station, showing the homestead and cattle around the water tank. With only the odd waterhole remaining at the end of the dry season, this has always been harsh, tough farming country. The sparse spinifex finally gives way to some mountainous country. The terrain doesn't look at all attractive, but suddenly, right ahead of us is what we have come all this long way to see. The truly remarkable Bungle Range. Although 350 million years old, the distinctive beehive-shaped domes came from uplift and erosion during the last 20 million years. Before then, the striated rocks, capped by a harder laterite, had been subjected to deep tropical rain, which leached out the siliceous cement which had bound the sand grains together. Only the weight of the overlying rock then held the sand grains in place, and further weathering of the laterite capping broke through and led to rapid disintegration of the underlying sand beds. Bacterial growth, with a skin of iron and manganese in bands, gave the unique striped look, and it still holds the fragile beehives together. On the western edge of the Bungles, the range had a more blocky structure. A general manager of a group of Australian exploration companies searching for minerals, oil and gas throughout Southeast Asia, I first landed by helicopter amongst the then unnamed Bungles in 1970. With no mineral prospects then detected, I took off to look elsewhere. About 50 kilometres north of the Bungles, the 1200 million year old Argyle diamond deposit was finally identified after 10 years search, and the mine commenced operation in 1985. Argyle is now the world's largest producer of natural diamonds, with a third of the world's supply. Diamonds are formed when carbon is subjected to very high pressures deep within the molten magma below the Earth's crust. The magma then rose through a crack in the crust, bringing with it the diamond. It then solidified into a near vertical Argyle diamond pipe. A huge open cut has been excavated, to bring all the rock containing the sparse diamonds to a very specialised treatment plant on the surface to separate the rock from the gem. This is the refuse remaining after the diamonds have been separated from the rock. We are now headed back toward Kununurra, skirting the western bank of Lake Argyll. The Ord scheme was first mooted in 1945 to irrigate 12,000 hectares of fertile black soil river plain from the diversion dam 6 kilometres upstream from the town site of Kununurra. Kununurra is the hub of the Ord River scheme and the only new town in the Kimberley in 100 years. Skirting the town and looping back toward the airstrip, we make our run back into land at Kununurra. It had been a great flight.
Howdy.
Howdy. It was a good flight. Thanks very much.
Excellent.
In our further exploration of the magnificent Kimberleys, we will drive from Kununurra northwest to Wyndham on the Arafura Sea and then south to Elquestro Station, where we will stay 2 nights. Before leaving Kununurra, we paused at the old Ivanhoe crossing, where the road originally crossed the Kununurra River and impounded the water behind it. It is now a favourite spot for barramundi fishing. And why not? We're now heading out to Kununurra via the roadway across the top of the diversion dam.
So 3 or so of those floodgates will be open at this stage. It's either 20 or 24 of the floodgates, I'm not sure, but still around that number.
We are now 130 kilometres northwest of Kununurra at Wyndham, atop Mount Bastion, at the famous 5 Rivers Lookout. Here the King, Chamberlain, Salmond, Durack and Forest rivers join in the Cambridge Gulf, to be joined later by the Ord River about 50 kilometres up the Gulf towards the Arafura Sea. Wyndham's major industry, the meatworks, processes about 40,000 cattle between April and September each year, and there's also a huge live cattle export from this port. Unfortunately, it was a very hot, humid, hazy and windy day. Note the height of the jetty. The tide rises 30 feet between low and high tide at Wyndham. Atop Mount Bastion are towers providing major commercial and defence communication to the north. Below is
The new town, the old town of course, back up the other end. They certainly couldn't expand any further where they were. That's why they had to come out. It's only an agency as such here, post office agency. They do have a shire office and all that sort of thing, and their schools, but the big stuff you've got to go to Kununurra.
We're in the middle of doing this, I've only just started. Little donation box up there if you feel that you want to put a couple of dollars in towards the construction of all this.
Although now a declining town in terms of population, Aboriginal pride in the area is clearly shown by these statues being built in the centre of the middle of town. And being in the Kimberleys, Wyndham inevitably had to have the big crocodile. And surely they can't get to be any bigger than this one. We're now heading out of Wyndham to travel about 120 kilometres south into the Durack Ranges and Elquestro Station. We now turn west onto the Gibb River Road and travel through Elquestro Station to Emma Gorge for our 2-night stay. It had been a long day, we were tired and ready for rest. And as we turned right, there in front of us was the truly magnificent Emma Gorge. It was utterly silent early next morning, except for the twittering of the birds, as the rising sun lit the brilliant red rocks of Enroute. It had been over 40 degrees centigrade last night in our 5-star tent, but it was a little cooler this morning and the day had dawned brilliantly to give promise of a really wonderful day ahead. The rising sun crept steadily down the cliff face of Enroute, and it was time to get up and go. The tents were now deserted because breakfast beckoned. Just follow that tantalising smell of bacon cooking. It was a hearty country breakfast in absolutely idyllic surroundings. And with breakfast behind us, it was time for a wonderful cruise along the Chamberlain Gorge.
There's Ben. Any of the real hard questions you've got, just ask Ben. Makes it a lot easier on me. This waterhole we're in now is approximately 2.5 kilometres long. At the end of this we'll pull into the rocks up there and go for a short walk and have a look at some Aboriginal artwork. So forth, the overhangs here this time of the morning. Just sing out if you see one, so we can point it out to everyone. They're fairly hard to see sometimes. Around this area here we haven't got too many, we haven't got any of the large kangaroo species. The largest one we've got around here is our Euro, or Wallaroo. What to do in crocodile infested water is if the boat goes down, don't you? There's life jackets you'll notice under the seats there at the back and under my seat here. What you do is you throw the life jacket one side and you dive out the other.
One very territorial male crocodile had a
hatred for female crocodiles. It actually killed every female crocodile that they put with it. So after about 7 or 8 deaths, he met the same fate.
Looking for elusive rock wallabies in caves on the cliff face.
Oh, I see it, yes, I see it.
Will Burrell is the current owner of El Questro here. He actually bought the place 10 years ago. And this Mexican actually gave them a name that sounded very similar to El Questro apparently, that meant land of rugged beauty. But after working out here for a matter of weeks or months, they went back into town to file their claim. First things first, the old pup come first and a few nights on the rum. And by the time they went to file their claim on the property and name the place, they couldn't even think of what it was. So the only thing they could think of was Equestra, which means absolutely nothing. You see a nice fault line that's cut that smooth face, and all that rocks come down there. And all the people that's worked here for over the years that I've spoke to and that, no one's ever seen a rock fall through.
This section of the gorge is renowned for its remarkable reflections of the rock face in the water below. We pulled into the bank to look at some rock art, and our newly found friends on the other boat also pulled in alongside us to watch us feed some spitting archerfish.
Oh, they're around. Oh, that might be a crocodile chasing.
Oh dear. It's so dark. Oh, hold that.
That's your team.
Repulsive habits. Yeah, Archer.
Oh, spit.
Here. Want to throw it in there?
Just hold it there and see if it come up.
All right.
You only feed them when they hit you. Alright, give them a little bit. Hold it. Hold that over there. No, just hold it still. Don't feed them unless they shoot you. That's it.
Yeah, I saw the spit come.
Did you get it?
I got it on video.
If you don't spit, you don't get it. That is for deer? That's fun. Ja, nou dat is een wasserhoek.
Either they were now very well fed, or the departure of the other boat may have disturbed them. But anyhow, it's time for us to go and have a look at this rock art on the bank.
Alright folks, we'll go for a little walk along the edge up here. Have a look at a little bit of rock art.
The archerfish had become quite reluctant, but they did put on the occasional display. However, the time had come to go.
No spitting at the fish.
These are the famous Wandjina Aboriginal paintings. Wandjina paintings are believed to be the shadows of ancestors imprinted on the rock as they passed by.
Just two stories, or simple stories on that.
These large, mouthless Wandjina figures and headdresses are amongst the most famous of all Aboriginal paintings. These Bradshaw figures were there long before the Wandjinas, possibly more than 20,000 years ago, and their significance to the Aborigines has long been forgotten.
Now, that's the Wandjina artwork. The one with the wild hairdo on the left. I want to do it.
Each Wandjina site has a living custodian, and to ensure good relation between the Wandjina and its people, the images are retouched annually.
No, there's sashes and that hanging off the waist. It's only from the waist down. The top half, there's calcium is built up on that and covered over the artwork.
The Wandjinas appear to have been recently retouched, but the Bradshaws are more than 20,000 years old and have not been retouched at all. A wonderful experience, but sadly we're now heading back.
Actually a pied cormorant, official name, but a local name, Kimberley penguin. It's actually the culprit that does all this natural rock art. Evidence in this gorge here, back up there further where we were and that, where there is an old flood level marked, we've found debris and so forth, that's 30 feet higher than that. resting in the shade. See, they're open slather for the eagles and so forth. That's why they rest in these caves, hide in the caves. They're only small.
Despite the eagle risk, the wallaby had its joey out on the ledge with it this time.
Doesn't look like our resident crocodiles are going to perform at all this morning for us.
It had been a most enjoyable cruise of the magnificent Chamberlain River, and we had one last sad, reluctant look at the gorge before we disembarked. The beauty of this exquisite bloom is so unexpected in the harsh, tough climate of the Kimberley that it attracted a great deal of attention from all the photographers in the group, and we were awfully lucky because it is quite a rare bloom on this otherwise quite uninteresting looking tree, and it actually happened while we were there. How could we have been so lucky? Now it's back on the coach and off to El Castro Homestead, or township as they call it, although frankly there's not a great deal there. Lots of activities though, and the swinging arm bar is an obvious attraction, provided of course you can afford the price of the drink seat. Back on the coach again, and it's off to Zebedee Springs. Into a forest of fruiting palm trees, delightfully cool, beautiful. At the end of the track, a really delightful swimming hole.
Nearly in myself. When you come out of here, don't go down where you did, follow it round over rocks down here out of the water. Just find a spot there.
The water was a delightful temperature, fed by a thermal spring high up in the cliff face.
If I say it's time to go, you won't be listening.
Everyone was having such a great time that no one wanted to leave. And I kept the camera rolling too, far longer than I should have. With great reluctance, everybody got their gear back on and accepted the fact that it was time to go. It was a delightful return walk through a cool forest of Liverstonia palms and savanna back to the car park.
Well, hello.
Hello! Next morning, another beautiful dawn as the sun tinted the red cliffs of Emma Gorge. Quiet and peaceful in the early morning as the birds hunted for their breakfast. And along the track, a wonderful encounter with a greater bowerbird.
Aren't you beautiful? Aren't you handsome?
There just has to be something to eat here somewhere. Aha! Got you! What's on the menu for breakfast? The grasshopper. Well, there's nothing else for it. I'll just have to swallow it whole. Didn't go down all that well, it was a bit prickly. I'll probably have indigestion all day. Let's see if I can find something more tasty. I'm not having much luck, but maybe there'll be another grasshopper up in the tree. But what's this up the tree?
A very shrill double whistle, rising and falling, fighter whistles and trills.
Off again.
Oh, there she goes.
It turned into a wonderful morning of bird watching at Emma Gorge.
Yeah, it looks like a tree. Looks like the tree. Yeah. I don't know where the other one is. It just, eyes are blinking over the beak. Yes, he does. He just peeks out. There he is. But he says, I'd rather be asleep, but because there's so many of you, I just be keep an eye on you.
He's just turned his head.
See the bird? He's still there. They had first privilege. Well, only a week ago, Mr. and Mrs. were in the same tree.
Branch starts. See that little hump?
Climbed up on a ladder and took photographs.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Oh, Junior's the one on the left front there?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Oh, I see. I see. Isn't he beautiful?
To show us his smartly striped breast, the banded top-knot pigeon also made a finale appearance to conclude our bird watching at Emma Gorge. There he goes. Yep, got him flying. And as we leave El Castro, it seemed like a good time for a coffee break before we head 400 kilometres south to Horse Creek. But we'll also have a good look at the Argyle diamond mine on our way to far distant Broome.